Pretty Little Liars, the book series, sometimes deals with disturbing and problematic topics. We provided a list of content warnings in the episode description. Hello and welcome to Dead Ends. I'm Emily.
I'm Brenton.
And today we bring you something different, something new, something fun, funky, and fresh, we hope.
Something old and new.
Yes, because we're bringing you the first, 5 chapters?
First 5 chapters.
Of Pretty Little Liars, the book.
Mm-hmm.
And Brenton got a version that has a modern rewriting of it. And I searched high and low for the originals.
Yeah.
So how we figured this out is because I didn't buy.
Visual reference.
On KU, the first Pretty Little Liars book is free. And so I said, download, because I got KU.
Right. And it's this new version.
Yes. And I start reading it, and it starts doing things like referencing Billie Eilish. It's like referencing like I don't know, it was like saying something that was out of style that would have been in style at the time, and like just like the references weren't hitting. And I was like, this is confusing, because I know for a fact, having been about the age of the characters, give or take, in this book, that like these references are wrong. So I went on Google, and the lovely people of Reddit, I'm sure they've never been referred to that way, but on this particular thread they were. Mm-hmm. They were like, yeah, they did like I don't know if it was because of the HBO TV series, the new version. So they did like a rewrite.
Yeah, this was published in the new version. I thought it had it here. Yeah, this just says 2006. I thought it was 2022 is when it was revised. So I think it's in, because it also has the cover promoting Original Sin. So I think it's part of the push for the new show.
Yes. And if you get the original, or if you just get Pretty Little Liars, just the first book on KU, it's going to be the version Brenton has.
Yeah.
Now, if you go and you buy the first three books as a set with the old covers, which if you're watching the video, that's what the first cover looks like.
Yeah. So for audio version people, the new covers has like a neon background with like 4 girls standing in shadow. And then the original books have like dolls.
Yes.
Like
they're
one
all
individual doll.
They're all dolls. And I bet if you get a bunch of them, you can guess which doll's who by looking at the cover. And because mine's in black and white, we can only somewhat guess who that's supposed to be.
Right.
Because we don't have hair color.
I think it's supposed to be Spencer.
I think so too, but isn't Spencer blonde?
Yes.
I guess that could be a golden blonde. Mm-hmm. It is really hard to tell because it's just like gray.
Right, yeah. I believe in color.
Okay.
She's blonde.
Yes, and if you get the 3-book collection like I did, it has like small pictures of the 3 books when you lock your Kindle, which is kind of less fun than having just like the one picture of the one book.
Oh no, yeah, that's dark hair, so it's probably Arya.
Is it? Or is it Hannah's like red hair?
It's brown. It's like a
Hannah's reddish brown.
Sandy blonde. So it's like mostly brown with some blonde highlight.
Huh.
So, I don't know.
We'll have to find out.
Tricky one.
Also, the epigraph at the beginning is 3 may keep a secret if 2 of them are dead, Benjamin Franklin, which I just like, I didn't know that's how that started. And so I was like, oh, like the theme song now makes like so much more sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they happened to find a song that matched it.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
That is also featured on Gossip Girl.
Yeah, weirdly.
Uh-huh.
We were watching that a while ago, and it was just like, what the hell? Like, the song's just here in full.
Uh-huh.
I've never heard it before. But yeah, I think also the other thing with the revised edition is we haven't hit any like 2006 era landmines. And what I mean by that is like culture and language wise, that were probably revised out in the new one. So uses of the R word, gay as a slur, I could see possibly coming up, but we haven't hit it yet. But I'm assuming because there was a reference in yours about like calling.
There was gay in mine.
Oh, okay. So there was like actually specifically in yours.
I'm pretty sure. And then one of the references in mine that got taken out of yours was Paris Hilton. We were slut shaming Paris Hilton, which like I'm glad we're not slut shaming Paris Hilton anymore. I think that is a good look going forward, but it does take away, not slut shaming Paris Hilton specifically, but changing the references does kind of take away from the time frame and era that it's supposed to be in. So it kind of loses its like historical context. I mean, like, I don't want to ever refer to these as like any sort of like, but like it takes away that like the specific 2007, 2006-ish era high schoolers.
Yeah, and the new version doesn't necessarily. It just kind of papers over them pretty quickly. They don't really match 1-to-1. But I just bring up the language specifically if you're like, I just kind of want to avoid that, which is fair enough.
Yeah, then I would get the newer versions.
Exactly. Yeah, but I do think it loses the like, because these are teen books that are trying to be hyper specific about like the lives of teens, that the older version is a very specific snapshot of what that is, and the new version doesn't necessarily. I think it kind of hastily matches it up and is just intended to be like papering over, at least so far.
Yeah, like for example, the posters in Maya's room, which we can get to when you do your recap, for you had Adele,
yes, Billie Eilish, and Doja Cat,
and mine was like MIA, the Black Eyed Peas, and Gwen Stefani. Those are not the same.
No, that's
not like mapping like, oh, they used to listen to, I don't know, I was gonna say like Metallica and then try to come up with a reference from our childhood that was like Metallica, and I realized I was very much out of my element because like I couldn't tell you what Metallica sounds like.
Right. If you were
like you're listening to even like matching rap, like if you were matching like a an Eminem to like, I don't know, whoever's a current white man rapper. They're out there. I believe in them. Right. But you know what I mean? Like, it's like that. But these aren't even like I would never match Adele to MIA or the Black Eyed Peas.
Or is to be a specifically like teen. Like it's not hitting the music the artists that like you would think that are big on like TikTok or something right now.
Yeah.
It would be like, oh, like Olivia Rodrigo or like Pink Pantheress or like
you know what reference would have stood the sands of time? Taylor Swift.
Yeah, Taylor Swift fits right there.
But Maya wasn't listening to that type of music, and that's part of it too. So like that's why Adele doesn't work, because like Maya is not like doesn't give off I'm listening to Adele vibes unironically.
Yeah, and a lot of the
Adele's a beautiful singer, but you know what I mean, just.
And a lot of the characters, which we'll get into, are like updated or changed from the show. I mean, that's just the casting process. But Maya is still black.
Yeah.
So it's like you put two white women on her wall, as like, and then also the reference within there is even funnier.
They erased. Yeah,
but the kicker on the Adele poster is like, yeah, my boyfriend's obsessed with Adele, and that's why she has Adele up there
instead of Gwen Stefani, right?
Right. Yeah. So it's funny. I think what we could probably do in future episodes that I thought about is that we could probably have a section on all the things that changed, like reference wise, and we could put that as part of the show.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Abercrombie stood the sands of time though. Abercrombie still the reference point. Tiffany's, Michael Kors, I believe. Yeah. What other brands were there? Kate Spade. I think some of Gen Z makes fun of Kate Spade now, but
for like big bags,
just like it's like Kate Spade does like a lot of really cutesy, kitschy designs, and so I think like that's not the vibe right now. So you know what I mean? It's not just like clean cut, pretty. I mean, like I had a nice, clean, plain, like little Kate Spade backpack that I used forever, but that's not like, the Kate Spade makes these cute Aristocat wallets. Like that's not really the
vibe. Got it.
Exactly. With the youths, the kids.
Yeah. And I've also say too, like it was until there's like a specific call out of like TikTok that like I wouldn't have picked up on. But you were just like, but this doesn't make sense. Like we weren't getting back into baggy jeans. We're putting back into polos.
So like in your book, I know there's a part that says something about like it's like like in my book, it says before Allie, the girls had felt like pleated, high-waisted mom jeans, awkward and noticeable for all the wrong reasons. But Allie made them feel like the most perfect fitting Stella McCartneys that no one could afford. And then when I read it in my other version, that's what made me catch it. Is like it's like comparing like a mini skirt and like something else, and it just like it wasn't hitting. And they took out Stella McCartney's completely. It was very it is page 9 according to my book.
Okay. Oh yeah, this is off. Never
Let me
mind.
see. I can find it.
But as you can kind of tell from our kind of like eye level talking about it, there's like a ton of references like baked in here. So there's a ton of small little changes like this. And I don't think it like necessarily changes like the context of this, the like overall flow of the story, but it definitely changes the context of like kind of like what they're talking about and like what the representation of their lives or like teen concerns and things like that.
Definitely.
And they don't always match one to one in like a flowing way of like getting the point across. Oh, and the other thing related to the like slut shaming thing, it was in your version, Emily kind of rolls her eyes at her making a reference to Paris Hilton, where in this one, it's in the updated version, it's just like who uses slut anymore anyway. So it's like different connotations of like how Emily is interpreting the slut shaming coming from her mom.
Yes. Yours says, and back to the mom jeans, it says, before Allie, the girls felt like pleated khakis, awkward and noticeable for all the wrong reasons. But then Allie made them feel like the most perfect, fitting, high-waisted, wide legs that no one could afford. And I was like, that is the worst sentence I've ever read in my life. This must be an edit.
Right.
Because, like, who's, like, made them feel like the most perfect, fitting, high-waisted, wide legs that no one could afford? Not even wide-legged pants. Like I was like, oh, this had to be like a control F.
Right. Hastily edit. Yeah.
I was like, this doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why aren't there brands? And then when I read it in my version, I was like, oh, Stella McCartney's. Like,
right.
Okay.
Well, should we get into the background and summary, and then we can kind of start talking about the book proper?
Yeah.
All right. So, got some background on the book since we're starting a new thing. We can kind of get into it there, and then I'll have a much more condensed summaries. What I'm just going to do is like brief summaries, kind of like comprising of the chapters, rather than how we do it last time. All right. So this was published in October 2006 by Harvard Teen. It appeared on the New York Times bestseller list for 62 weeks.
Damn.
Yeah, very popular. I
remember seeing these in a Borders bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I picked like a click book instead. I don't think I picked one of these.
Happening, I believe, contemporary. Also published by Harper Teen, I believe, when I looked at this.
I'm pretty sure Harper Teen and then Alloy kind of had their grubby little hands into everything. I say grubby, right. But I just assume because big company.
Yeah, yeah. Harper Teen makes sense. Alloy might have done.
I just felt like they were connected a lot, but I don't know if that's for sure.
But that makes sense. So
yeah.
Getting into that, I'll jump ahead real quick. So these are like created through the book packaging company called at the time 17th Street. Well, not even at the time. Sorry, earlier 17th Street Entertainment, which sold to Alloy Digital in 2000 and became Alloy Entertainment. I learned what book packaging is, which is essentially an outsourced company that goes, creates the book, and then sells it back to the publisher. So Harper Teen is not doing anything other than putting their name on the book and publishing the book. But in terms of like the actual like working with the authors, creating it, that's all coming from Alloy Entertainment. Alloy Entertainment is later bought by Warner Brothers in 2012, Warner Brothers Television. So Alloy Entertainment is also in a wider entertainment company by turning these books into TV shows. So in a interview that I read with Sarah Shepard from like 2014, it was pretty apparent that like as soon as the book sold, they're like, yeah, we can turn this into a TV show. So that's part of like their company's like process, right? Is to like create content and then like be able to map it to other forms of media and sell it. So Alloy Entertainment also has Vampire Diaries, which they did this with. They had the Big Four. They also had Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
And Gossip Girl.
And Gossip Girl. Yeah. So those were like their big four things that like really hit big. So obviously they were working closely with Warner Brothers on a lot of those things because Gossip Girl and Vampire Diaries were both CW. So it makes sense why Warner Brothers Television bought them up when they were sold by their parent company in 2012, or like dropped, I should say.
Which is crazy when you think about it, because like that's when those all started like really taking off. But was it because of Warner Brothers purchasing them?
No, they just divested.
Oh.
Whatever the venture holding company that had them was moving on. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It seems like a bad time to drop them.
Totally. After, because in 2012, I mean, that's season 3 of PLL too. So.
And Gossip Girl has already been on for like a long time.
Yep.
And the Vampire Diaries was already on and popular.
Which is just wild. And so Sarah Shepard is the author of the books. She wrote 16 total books for this book series plus 2 companion novels. So this is all happening with over 8 years that they were released. She wrote like about 2 a year plus more. Since the time she's been a published author, she's got like probably like 20 some odd books. There's 30 some odd books. Doing a ton. And so PLL gets turned into a series. They tried to adapt The Lion Game into a series that got canceled. She had a different book series called The Perfectionist, which was not related to PLL, which they then mapped back to the PLL series to try to create a spinoff. That only gets 1 series. And then they also have tried to develop her other books into shows. Part of Shay Mitchell's agreement of work, she like signed some sort of agreement of working with Warner Brothers. And so that was, they were developing another book of hers called The Heiresses, which is, it sounds like Pretty Little Liars, but they're all diamond. It's like a diamond heiress family.
That's kind of fun.
So that's a single, it's a under adult fiction on that one. And that was moving forward with Marlene King. That was back in 2017, but it didn't get picked up. I believe those are kind of all the ones. So the most successful for her adaptations was obviously PLL. But she worked at Time Inc. From 2000 to 2005, creating lifestyle magazines for corporate clients, and was ghostwriting freelance in 2002. Realized she liked writing YA while she was doing that, and so when she was working for 17th Street Entertainment or Aloy Entertainment, they approached her to write an original book, which became PLL. And so she.
I wonder what she ghostwrote. You know what I mean?
Right, totally.
Like, isn't that like ghostwriting is a crazy thing? Because like, you just like sell your words, but then like someone else's name is on it, and like I know over time, certain agreements, certain people end up getting credit, and like you might get credit within like your specific like company or industry or whatever it is, but like, it's so wild.
It's really weird. Yeah, because then you'd be like seeing your word says under someone else's name. I'd be curious looking at publishing dates, what under Aloy she potentially wrote.
Or it's just crazy.
Yeah. And so it's PLL's picked up in 2005. She said she spoke to teens online and referred to her own diaries when writing this. So supposedly on her Wikipedia it says she has a sister named Allison. So forever immortal. So she knew originally that she was going to make it 4 books. But she created each additional deal that she made with Aloy Entertainment was 4 books from then on. So she wrote the first book, knew it was going to be 4, and then each individual deal after is for an additional 4 books. And then
I wonder if it's like 1 book per girl. Like if you look at the dolls on the front, which one's on which?
Oh, right. If that's how she was like intending it. She didn't mention it. I'm pulling this from an interview. I couldn't really find a lot, but Media Bistro. I hadn't heard of this, but they had interviewed her back in like 2013, and that's where I find her like speaking to this process specifically. So this is all coming from Sarah Shepard. Okay. Let me get into the summary. So, 5 friends, Arya, Emily, Spencer, and Hannah, led by the popular Allison, meet up for a sleepover at Spencer's house. They all keep secrets from one another, but Allison seems to know them all and uses it to push all of their buttons. They all go to Rosewood Day School. It's a private school that includes junior and high school students. They avoid the dorks, Mona, Chassie, and Fee, Do you think it's Phi? Probably Phi. It's PHI. As they are the popular girls. They go to Spencer's barn to hang out and find her older sister Melissa with her boyfriend Ian, who are both seniors graduating from Rosewood Day. The couple leaves, and Allison talks everyone into letting her hypnotize them. Before Allison can hypnotize Spencer, Spencer freaks out, and the two get in an argument that is actually about something else, but we don't know what exactly that is yet, but we can guess. Allison leaves the barn, and after a few minutes, goes to follow her. Spencer goes to follow her. The girls then all come to one by one and do not find Allison, and she is soon declared missing over the coming days. 3 years later, the friends are all starting their junior year at Rosewood, but they are no longer friends, all kind of separated, doing their own thing. Emily is sent by her mom to deliver a welcome basket to the new people that moved into Allison's house. There she meets Maya St. Germain and finds herself oddly flustered. They hang out, and straight-laced Emily smokes a joint for the first time with Maya. Arya comes back from being abroad in Iceland, bummed because she had finally felt confident over there. She's worried that her parents will no longer be loving to one another back in the States as they were in Iceland. She drives her brother, wait for it, Michelangelo, to the cross practice and runs into Noel Kahn, her old crush. And
nowhere did Miss Marlene give us Michelangelo.
No, I know. I can't believe it was written out. Biggest
waiting
drop
for
of the
Donatello.
I know.
He was reading in bed, and I hear him go, Michelangelo. And I was like, what the fuck?
What are you talking about?
The Ninja Turtles aren't in our bed right now.
Oh, it was a tremendous reveal. Noel juvenilely hits on Arya, and she's like turned off by this. She then goes to a college bar nearby called Snooker's, which is near Hollis College in Rosewood, and meets a boy named Ezra. They get drunk together and bond over their shared insufferableness of going abroad. They hook up in the bathroom.
Oh, wait, can I interrupt really quick? So I looked on Sarah Shepard's Instagram, which I should have done earlier, and she did post January 10th of 2022 when the new covers came out. And here's what it says. It says the PLL books are getting a new look. Not sure when these are hitting the shelves, probably around the time PLL Original Sin is on HBO Max. But inside is a small update as well. I went through the pages for you and no longer do Spencer and the others. I don't know why Spencer. Maybe it's Spencer's on the cover. Spencer and the others use sidekicks, Blackberries, trios, and other phones that don't exist. A small update for modern times, but don't worry, their stories are still the same, and A is still vicious. I feel like that's a little gaslighty because it is not just the cell phones.
Right.
And also, I loved my Blackberry. I liked having buttons.
Yeah, it just reads to me as corporate mandated.
Yeah, and I totally like certain things are. People are. The comments are people that are like, "How do I get the old ones?"
Right. Reseller bookstores. Okay, so then Mona and Hannah are now the popular girls of Rosewood after losing weight and changing their lifestyles. They are out at the mall and go into Tiffany's and steal jewelry, a favorite pastime of theirs. Hannah is also worried because her boyfriend Sean announced he signed a virginity pledge, and Mona teases her about it. The Hastings are out.
We only signed that Oprah "Don't Text and Drive" pledge. Did you have to sign that in high school?
No, thank God.
Oh my gosh, it was like a thing, and like it was like Oprah's whole thing about not texting and driving, which don't text and drive, absolutely. But I just like Oprah. Why
that was
Oprah?
in high school?
I'm pretty sure it was in high school.
Like amongst your friends or like school mandated?
I mean, I think they presented it to us. Like I don't remember actually signing
Weird
anything. What were they gonna hold? You can't hold minors to contracts.
I know. I was just wondering where it was coming from.
Oh yeah, I think it was school.
Weird. The Hastings are out to dinner to celebrate Melissa graduating early from Penn and being accepted in Penn's business school. Spencer has always been in competition with her and has always come in second on everything. Melissa was president, Spencer's vice president, etc. She reminisces about the one time she got one over on Melissa when right before the end of 7th grade she made out with Ian. Spencer told Allison about it, who made her feel bad. Melissa arrives with her new boyfriend Ren, and they're invited by Veronica to move back into the barn at the house, essentially kicking Spencer out of the room when she was about to move into it. Spencer steps outside to cool off and smoke a cigarette, and Ren joins her, and they bond and flirt. Arya has her first day back at school and is followed around by Noel Kahn, much to her chagrin. She reunites with Hannah and is surprised at at the change in her appearance. She reminisces about hooking up with Ezra and how she texted him a haiku about it at 2:30 a.m. She is shocked when her new English teacher turns around and it's Ezra. She then receives a text on her phone from a mysterious A referencing her hooking up with her new teacher. And that's the reading for this week.
Spencer is on the cover of this book. It's confirmed.
It is Spencer?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought that's one thing that this book is I find very funny after like watching the show. It's just oops, all blondes. Spencer's a blonde, Melissa's a blonde. So all the Hastings are blondes. Ian's a blonde. Ezra's a blonde. Emily is blonde, like reddish blonde hair.
Hannah's a reddish brown.
Mm-hmm. And then Arya is like the only one with like dark hair.
Well, you know, us weirdos.
Right, exactly. It's so funny. And yeah, I mean, you from the beginning, you commented on this. You're like, it paints the picture that Arya is definitely a little weird by sniffing the grass.
Yeah, it starts with Arya sniffing the grass. Also, they're so young in this. They're in between the summer in between 7th and 8th grade.
It makes things, I think, across this book. It will obviously in the book compared to what you're seeing in the show. I feel like this feels like slightly edgier, right? Because it is like age down, younger, like the things that are happening to him.
Mm-hmm.
The drinking and smoking is much more just like laissez-faire,
Uh-huh.
which I think like as a teen, if you're reading this, you'd be like, yeah, it makes more sense. So I feel like it speaks a little bit more to that. Allison in this is hanging out with the older girls and they spray her down to like cover from the cigarette smoke.
Uh-huh.
So there's just like those
That Bath and Body Works spray, you know?
Totally. So you get like a little bit more of like the danger. So as adults reading this, you understand more of the danger of the like being a teen and being interacting with people.
Uh-huh.
So it's more than I think the show you kind of get where it's a little bit more sanitized in that direction.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, the 7th grade thing is like much more pronounced.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it's them going into their 8th grade year, and that's that same thing of Allison being part of the older girls thing is like you see because this private school is junior in high school, they're much more in contact with older kids, and thus
Uh-huh.
yeah.
And there was nothing more exciting as like a junior high person than when like a high schooler thought you were, you know, like you were their baby, like they loved you and they took you in or whatever. Or even like when you're a freshman and you have like junior and senior friends, and it's like those and obviously like it's kids and kids. Like I mean, Ian's an adult, we got a whole issue with him, but we can get to that. And Ezra's an adult, we got a whole issue with that. We can get to that in a minute. But like when it comes to like the girls and how they interact and how we'll see how they interact with like the other peers and stuff like that. It's very kid. It's more evidently kid on kid in this than it is when you watch it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because they're not played by
20-year-olds.
Yeah. Who are all around the same age.
Yes. But yes. And Arya's got Pigtunia.
Yes. The strange pig puppet that is emblematic of, I think, her father having an affair.
Her father gave it to her.
There yet.
And it what was it? It advises her on her love life.
Yes.
You know what? Fuck yeah, Pigtunia.
Yeah, go for it, Pigtunia.
I'm also into like, okay, when you're we kind of give Arya the like, oh, you thought this boy was cute and now he wants you treatment, which like I'm always a big fan of. Like I love when a girly pop doesn't care anymore.
Right.
And then she gets what she wanted.
And she's like, oh God, like now that I'm older, like this is he's so insufferable.
I want an older boy.
Right. And
I want a man. And you're like, no, you're 14
Yeah.
or 16 or whatever.
Right. This is much better at showing than obviously the show because it leans way into it, but we'll see what happens. That already off the bat, it's like these girls are the discrepancy and danger between the older boys and like men in their life, the attention of men is much more pronounced here. And the like
they're leery.
Exactly, like the danger of men. Even when like Hannah and Mona are just they're being little shits, but they're like, let's flash this guy who's like checking us out because then it'll like really freak him out. The focus is much more on the male attention on young girls' bodies.
And it makes it less okay. Which I appreciate.
Yes, absolutely.
I actually like that better. A lot better.
Yep, Totally.
I'm intrigued to see if we actually like these stories better.
Yeah, yeah, we'll have a good time. I guess we'll see how the wider mystery plot sits with us. But yeah, at least going back to, so they're all 7th grade. We have Allison now, who's again still not much of a character, and I think that's fine because she's the idea of like their popular friend that controls all of them and then happens to go missing. So it's much more about her impact on our 4 lead characters. But you had also commented on this too, her competition with Spencer.
Yes, and they make it very big. When they make Spencer blonde, it kind of like heightens that competition. And I don't think necessarily like they needed to do it exactly like that in the show, but like I don't think it's illustrated in the same way. Like in this, it's so evident that they're in strict competition and that Allison is always winning. And Spencer already has insecurity about the fact that Melissa is always winning. And they feed that to us so early. So of course Spencer's going to do dumb shit to try to get ahead or attention, or she's going to completely reject all of it and just go full chaos mode.
Totally.
Which I'm kind of hoping she does because she's smoking cigarettes outside and talking to Ren.
And the way her relationship with Ian is also framed differently. It's I got one up on my sister. Which is much more of that like, yeah, fuck you. And also with Allison also being, she beat her out for the field hockey team. So Allison is also, we get an idea that Allison was actually involved in the school.
And athletic.
Like, exactly. Where Allison in the show is just kind of like, she just was the mean girl at school.
She's popular.
Yeah. There's no direct comparisons to anybody there. So.
Well, and I think there's something so specifically threatening about a popular, pretty girl who's also good at things.
Yeah.
And like the monster we make them into, in a sense, almost, because like girls are held to such ridiculous, like Noel Kahn gets to be Noel Kahn and fuck around and do whatever he wants and no one cares because he's a boy. But like Allison and Spencer like have to be, you have to be pretty because you want to have that social currency. You have to be a little edgy. You have to be, like a rebel. You have to be able to lie to your parents and get ahead. Like there's so many more layers. I really like that they represent like that nuance of being a teenage girl, because it's like there's no right way to do it. You're gonna fuck it up. And it's like, obviously I don't believe that the way Allison was living her life is like the way you should recommend a teenager live their life. But it doesn't quite, she's not the villain that she is in the book or in the show.
Yeah, we don't know
yet.
Yeah, exactly. Other than that she knows everybody's secret, and it's still the same of like secrets bring us together.
Yes.
And pokes on their insecurities.
And she pokes on their insecurities. And she started specifically doing that at that point.
Right. And we do see the cruelty that she takes from male figures in her life. The game that they
do the not it or whatever.
Exactly.
Because Jason taught it to her.
And Jason and his friends would use it because like whoever lost the not it competition had to talk to the quote unquote ugly friend out of the group of girls they're interested in. So how that cruelty is passed down from
the way men perceive women, and
exactly.
like that girls' violence against women, like not social violence, not physical violence, is taught to them by men.
Yeah, the structure in the book is the violence is patriarchal. So yeah, it'll be interesting where we get. We'll wrap back around on Allison in a sec. Spencer kind of still the same. Type A, running things, but we talked
smoking
about chaos
cigarettes.
Mode. Right. So she's much more of
Spencer Hastings doesn't smoke cigarettes,
No, and she's much more like fuck you. I'm gonna get one over, right? I'm gonna at least get mine, even if it's indirect. Emily is similar as we have the start of the show, where she's a little bit more of a pushover.
But white.
Exactly.
So white.
Also, the Catholicism, much more proven in this.
Still canon for you.
Is exactly. Coming back around. Arya is much more stranger in this. Like, she is, like, she doesn't, it seems like she doesn't quite understand when, like, Allison talks down to her, but she's not also going to let Allison talk down to her. Like, she's, like, seems out of all of them to be the most immature in this original chapter. Like she
Mhm.
had like quote unquote immature between amongst the friends. She has her stuffies, she has her like puppets and things like that she carries around with her everywhere,
Mhm.
and that like Allison talks down to her, but she bites back. And it doesn't seem like she's like almost like a little bit more spacey.
I wonder if that's more confidence than immaturity, because we do this thing to little girls and girls as you get older. Like someone talked about this talking about the Barbie movie, even just
Yeah.
like when girls get older, they have to leave behind everything. You can't have your stuffed animals. You can't have your Disney. Like we make fun of Disney adults. Like we make fun of when adult women or teen women or older girls, like it's like, oh, aren't you done playing with dolls? Aren't you done doing this? Whereas boys get to keep their video games. Boys get to keep their sports.
Yeah, I should rephrase that as quote unquote immature amongst the friends and how they treat her that way.
Got it.
Not, I don't think she's any more immature than anybody else amongst that group.
Cool.
It's more that the way like Allison perceives her.
I was like, don't you come for Pigtunia?
Yeah,
I'll come for you.
yeah, Pigtunia certainly, yeah. And in addition, but the way like Allison like treats her and stuff like that, right? As like we're older now, you need to put those away. And Arya kind of being like, what?
Yeah.
I don't really quite understand those social cues at the same way.
Or I don't want to participate in them. I think it's less that and more like when in the next chapter when we get her coming back and she talks about her parents and how their parents tell them to call them by their first name. Like it's more of a rejection. It's less about like being perceived as mature and more about intentionally disregarding social norms. Like I think it's a conscious choice. It's not it's not a misunderstanding. It's I see that this is the norm you expect, and I say why.
Yeah.
Living outside of the box, I guess.
Yeah. It seemed to me, well, I mean, that's early on. I don't know if it seems like that comes after Allison goes missing, where it talks about where she goes through her different phases. But we didn't, it's a small glimpse of it. That was just at least my original read. And then Hannah is the most underwritten here so far of... She is the overweight owner of the group. So Allison is the one she's the one that Allison feels the easiest picking on her. And then afterwards, of course, it's I have now changed and I wish Allison could see me now. So almost I could rub it. It's not quite rub it in her face, but like validate me. But when we get to more of her chapter, we'll talk about it more. But there's just not a lot for Hannah here in either chapters. So that's where it's like I would be like, well, Ashley Benson brings a lot to it.
Yeah.
And the show does. So then they all travel. So yeah, we meet Mona and the gang of dorks, quote unquote, or nerds. Along with Chassis and Fee, who are not... we don't know what happened to them later. Maybe they'll get brought back up in the flash forward. But again, they're all quote unquote immature. They're riding their razor scooters all over the place. And they're like, oh, you want to go watch this thing, like asking for validation, and like Allison talks down to him.
Yeah, they wanted to show them this thing on Fear Factor, which does not exist anymore. So they changed it in the book to TikTok.
But that similar discrepancy of like looking down between like more like childish activities on the cusp of teenhood.
Well, and also I think childish activities, and also like I feel like watching Fear Factor specifically like more of like a family thing. Like it's like, oh, like that's cute that you watch like a cable television show.
Right. We're gonna go do like real things.
Yeah. Like we're not gonna sit inside and just like watch a show. We're gonna go talk to boys.
Right, exactly. And boy do they. So then they go back to the barn and we get introduced to Melissa and Ian. Melissa, similar kind of type A thing, and then the discrepancy between Ian and Spencer is so much larger because Spencer is a 7th grader, which would put her about 13 versus his 18.
5 years. Well, what was it in the
show?
Yeah. She was like 14 or 15 and he was like 19 or 20.
Had they graduated at that point?
I thought they had.
Okay.
Maybe not.
Yeah. At least the time in the flashback, I didn't know if they'd graduated because Melissa was still around.
But Melissa was graduating college, had already graduated college when the show starts. Only
But
2
that's
years
after
later.
the flash forward.
But that's only 2 years forward.
Right.
So when Allie goes missing, it would have been their like second year in college.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Unless Melissa really crammed all those units in, which
Right. Fair enough. And still kind of like shitheel. That you kind of get like real bad vibes off him. So it's very apparent from the beginning, like this is like gross boundary crossing. An absolute predator. So I think the weirdest change that the show takes out, hypnotism.
Yeah, that Allie's doing hypnotism. That's such like a teenage girl at a sleepover thing to do, or like a preteen, like, oh, we're gonna do. It's like that light as a feather, stiff as a board thing.
Right. But it seems to work.
Yeah, Allie's doing hypnotism.
Yeah, I was so surprised.
But only on, do you notice who stays in it the longest?
I didn't notice who stays in the longest at all.
Oh.
But I knew it, like, it worked on the 3, and then Spencer freaks out.
And then Arya comes out, and then Emily and Hannah, I believe.
Okay.
I believe. I'd have to double check. But I thought that was interesting. I was like, oh, I bet this is going to show us like who's most to least gullible.
Oh, that makes sense. It also makes me wonder, are we going to get this coming up later as a plot device?
Hypnotism?
Uh-huh. Will people have false memories or like not remember things or being compelled to do things under hypnosis? Which I don't know how into it I am. But we'll see. I thought it was a really like funny like addition. Instead of them, I talked about the other parts where like the casual drinking are throughout the thing. Like the show is just them drinking and they pass out, which is, they go to sleep. That's fine. That makes sense. Or no, actually it's retconned in the just watch where she drugged them. The hypnosis is I don't know. I don't know quite what to make of that.
Well, and it's not just like hypnosis. So I found it. It says, one, we get like an allusion already right off the bat to Spencer's drug problem, because Spencer goes, God, go take a pill, and Allie goes, you think I should take a pill? So I assumed that's where that was going. But I'm trying to find the beginning of it. Like she when she starts to hypnotize them, she touches Arya's forehead with her thumb. Spencer uncrossed her legs. Arya twitched her left foot. And like then the other girls aren't noted moving while she does it. So it's like you can already tell like who your twitchy ones are, who you're like you're not gonna have like get them in the same way. And then like Spencer jumps up and like opens the windows and was like, no.
Right. It is just like, I need to get out of here.
And so they open the blinds or what, and then they fight. But then it's when she heard the door slam, Arya opened her eyes. Allie, she called. Guys, no answer. She looked around. Hannah and Emily sat like lumps on the carpet, and the door was open. Arya moved out to the porch. No one was there either. And then, she keeps looking. And then inside, Hannah and Emily rubbed their eyes. I just had the weirdest dream, Emily said. I mean, I guess it was a dream. It was really quick. Allison fell down this really deep well, and then there were all these giant plants. That was my dream too, Hannah said. It was? Emily asked. Kind of. There was a big plant in it, and I think I saw Allison too. It might have been her shadow, but it was definitely her.
Yeah, like that part I like.
Yeah. So I think you needed like the dreamy hypnotism part of it to have
weird
that
serial,
you couldn't,
surreal nature.
I mean, I think that's why in the show though they put them to sleep instead. Like they all like, I mean, Allie drugs them, but like
yeah, but we don't get dreams, and I like that a lot.
Yeah,
but like seeing weird things in dreams.
We were getting dreams, but they weren't actually dreams. It was Allie.
Right, but there's nothing quite as abstract as like Allison being at the bottom of a well surrounded by plants. So it's like, are we to take that literally? Is that where they'll find Allison's body, or is there something else about like Allison being trapped at the bottom of a dark thing that she can't get out of, being overgrown by plants, which is interesting. Which I really like.
Yep.
Yeah.
We also still get the Jenna thing.
Yes, the Jenna thing. We haven't met Jenna yet, but we obviously know something that's like their biggest worry out of everybody. We get that a couple times throughout these, even
Yeah.
in the flash forward.
Yeah, like, oh, they didn't say anything about the Jenna thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So then we get. It's interesting that we get 3 years later too. I think the distance between all the friends makes much more sense
Mm-hmm.
because it's the difference between there's 3 years of like going from middle school to high school. That's huge.
And you get like the first year after where they slowly start distancing and like it just gets weird for them. And then you get like the next year where they're like now high schoolers, and then you get like Arya goes abroad, and then,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like fully, completely like away from one another.
Mm-hmm. Though it does seem like a lot of Hannah's change happens right before, like it happened the year before. You know what I mean? Because Arya doesn't recognize her, kind of, or does, but
Right. Yeah. It seems like it takes place during the same time that it does, like kind of on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And then they kind of like take over like that. It's like before that sophomore year.
Mm-hmm.
When Arya disappears.
And then we get Maya.
Exactly. Well, we also get that. Emily has a sister
And a vanilla Coke problem.
Right.
This girl is drinking a vanilla Coke the entire chapter, and it's like the only reference point she gets. It's like she inhales. It did not taste like her vanilla Coke, and it's like, well, yeah, it's marijuana.
Right.
I don't know if that was supposed to show like naivety or like naivete.
Right.
And no, but it was like can't English. Or if it's just like, like it was just like a reference point for sipping, but I thought it was really funny.
Just like how much like the vanilla Coke.
The vanilla Coke comes up a lot in this one chapter. I was like, are they paying for this spot?
Right. I do find funny that Mrs. Fields is a retired teacher, and now has just become like the neighborhood busybody. So she's just like, I have to like go send like a thing over there.
A gift basket.
Exactly. Yeah. The like to like be like part of the neighborhood. So where that goes. Oh, big change too is that Emily mentions a spree of killings. That was like part of when Allison went missing also.
Oh.
So like that's all that's like kind of mentioned there. It's just kind of like a line.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I believe you.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it. I'll come back to it in just a sec. Also, when she goes to takes the basket, goes to Maya's house on her mom's word, even though she's like, I don't want to do it, but this is Emily at this point. She's still a little bit of a pushover. Goes, meets Maya. We already get that she's like, oh, I'm a little flummoxed by this girl that just opened up and likes to talk a lot. What is Maya wearing?
She's wearing a bra?
Wearing a yellow top.
Oh, I know they talk a lot about her bra, so
right. No, totally. I was like, oh my god, the yellow top. That's for the.
I liked that the sister was Carolyn. The sister was sitting in the lazy boy in the den watching Dr. Phil. Personally.
Oh, okay. Here's another one. Watching some animal video on YouTube.
Really?
Yeah.
They got rid of Dr. Phil like
There's
that?
So much of this little stuff in there.
Why would you get rid of Dr. Phil like that? I mean, it's supposed to show how bad television was, right? Like, it wasn't supposed to be celebrating Dr. Phil.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, this is kind of similar where like Emily's very charmed by Maya just kind of being very relaxed, easygoing, and like talkative, and obviously like attracted to her. But it's just kind of like bowled over by this new person, and is like very much like, okay, like we get already those seeds of like, well, I was interested in Allison, but like this new girl in town is like, that's kind of exciting to me, to have this new person I can kind of that like I can look up to at the same time as being like interested in. Like she has all the qualities that you can assume that she liked in Allison, of like that confidence of like how she like, wow, this girl doesn't stop talking, and that's like an exciting thing.
Yeah, also you can tell like Emily has not moved on from Allie, because like right at the when she goes to the house, she's like, plus deep down she kind of wanted a reason to see Allison's house again. Well, it seemed like the rest of Rosewood had started to move on from Alex's appearance 3 years, 2 months, and 12 days ago. Emily hadn't. And like the days, like I was like, oh, that's a very specific way to. Yeah. Even now, she couldn't glance at her 7th grade yearbook without wanting to curl up in a ball, and she still had her notes from Allie.
Right. That
that
it's
she
like,
kept in an Adidas shoe box under the bed.
I'm curious if
She
that's...
even kept a pair of Citizens corduroys Allie had let her borrow on a wooden hanger in her closet, even though
Mhm.
they were now way too small.
And I like yeah, so it's very illustrative of that she can't move on, or she hasn't moved on yet because it's like that first love. We don't get it explicitly. And then they both compare their beards. I have a boyfriend who does this. I have a boyfriend who does this. They're fine. Um,
My boyfriend plays water
it's
sports.
kind of, yeah,
My boyfriend likes woman on my wall.
Uh-huh. We both love them 100%.
Also, like, to me, it makes so much more sense for a girl to be like, oh yeah, like Gwen Stefani was like had like a hot like vibe. You know what I mean? Like she was doing hot girl things. Adele is just like an amazing fucking singer.
Right.
So like, unless you're like really into beautiful songs, it's not quite the like it's this is not. It's just the match makes me mad.
Right.
Because it's just like that's not.
It doesn't work.
No.
I'll stop looking.
The girl wore a yellow tank top whose strap had slid off her shoulder to reveal an orange and green bra strap. Emily wasn't certain, but she thought she had the same bra at home. It was from Victoria's Secrets and had little oranges, peaches, and limes all over the boob parts. We just call those the cups, Emily.
Right. But I think that's illustrative of that this is all in third person limited. So like the narrator takes on the tone of
no, it is definitely.
Oh, yeah, that's something I wanted to call out.
Yes, yeah, it's definitely third person limited. And outside of that first chapter, it doesn't seem like we head hop, which is good. I guess it doesn't really head hop, but it is kind of.
It does though, because each one is from their individual perspective, kind of like each chapter. All right, I need to put this away.
But yes, yeah, it was an orange top or yellow top. I mean, I like that Maya immediately puts Emily to work. Like, you want to carry these boxes for me? That's a me vibe.
Right.
Like, you want to help me move some shit?
And I can completely get on the other side, like, oh yeah, the casualness in which you referred to me, like, cool, yeah, obviously I'd help you.
Definitely.
And smokes a J for the first time.
Yes. Well, she
takes a puff.
And
then bails.
And then
that's enough marijuana for me. Thank you so much. I have things to do today. One marijuana, please.
Yes. Yeah. It was definitely it was very similar to the show in that way. I like that Emily thinks she sees her boyfriend too much of the time. She's like, my boyfriend and I on this swim team. We see each other all the time. Maybe too much.
This is a little much. Yeah, it's also bearing repeating that this book came out in 2006. You know, this is 2 years, at least in California, before there's even a Prop 8 vote, which was a prop to legalize gay marriage, which was shot down.
Stop the hate, no on hate.
Yeah, and not saying that we live in some sort of amazing radical acceptance of queer living nowadays, but it was definitely much different then. A little bit less visible.
Well, and for a mainstream teen story, which is so sad, but like that wasn't usually part of the narrative.
No, not at all.
This was considered very edgy.
Totally.
I would assume.
Yeah. Well, do we want to go to the next chapter?
Yeah.
So then we go to yes, the Michelangelo reveal. It's just great, but it shows how different Ella and Byron are. They're like they're
the hippie parents.
They are, yeah.
And I like that in the show it's like hippies, obviously English teachers.
Right, exactly. And they're just kind of like
what is this mapping?
Hippie to like hippie, kind of like outsiderish, like parents to like they're just the nice people.
They're so nice.
We don't really get much of an idea of them other than like their children's names. The way they like ask their children to call them by their first names is very like, you know, it's obviously like strange parenting, as you kind of assume, like you're adults, or treat us as adults. And we get that there's trouble in paradise between them. You know, that we know from probably watching the show that there's a like 1-for-1 adaptation there probably. But Arya even picks up like, oh, her phrasing it is like they won't love each other the same here.
Well, and they were gone for a long time. Like in this,
Yeah.
it says they left the fall after Allison went missing.
Yeah. So they're gone like almost 3 years.
So I guess Hannah might have had her glow up earlier. I don't
Mhm.
really know. I was basing it off Arya's timeline, but I guess that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. There's I believe there's a timeline in Hannah's chapter.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Arya gets to start a whole life. She excels. She like meets boys. She gets to do all sorts of cool things, like where it's like the stereotypical like European experience as you think, where it's like kids are much more free to go do things. They're treated like almost as adults, like lower drinking age, where you're able to like go do parties and things. But it makes you see more adult. And so when she comes back here, it's like boys are so immature in comparison to the one who like showed me his horse and let me go ride around. And then you get Noel Khan being like, "Hey, how's it going?
You gonna watch me hit the ball?"
I'm really cool at lacrosse." So of course Arya is just like, "This sucks. Like, I don't like this guy. I want the horses and the Icelandic boys back." Whereas
Mhm.
Mike was like, well, that's where you get the him using gay as a slur in year one,
Yeah.
where Mike just didn't get along with anybody.
Yeah. Well, he specifically, I think he calls the horses gay. So, like,
Yes.
I don't really. It's also like,
Okay.
what was the purpose of that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was a good edit to omit. Like, because it's just
Totally.
like, this is not helping at all.
No, yeah, because
And
we're
it's
just
not
casually
even
using
setting
it as
the
a slur
scene.
back then.
Yeah. But yes, yeah. And we get kind of like in Arya's head where it's like before she left, Spencer was like, "Oh, you'd probably get more dates if you tried to fit in a bit more."
Uh-huh.
And Arya's like, "I can't because my parents told me I'm not a follower and I should just be myself."
Totally. Yeah, so it makes much more sense. Or there's more of an emphasis of just like, what am I doing back here?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was having a great time and now I'm stuck in suburbia again.
Mm-hmm.
Like Mike, on the other hand, we get is much more like golden retriever ish.
Which she calls him a golden retriever.
Yeah.
She's sticking his head out the back window like a golden retriever or something like that.
And is being like all excited by the sights and being back in things. Where Arya is just like, God damn it, I don't fit in here. So that's why like I joke about that like friend about being insufferable going abroad, because there is that experience of people going abroad and being like, oh, I got to like taste the fine life of being like in this European place, and now I'm like stuck back here. So like no one understands. It's a very like young sort of thing of like no one understands my experiences, other than like the other people who have been there and experienced the sort of thing. Which sets us up for later.
And one of the guys even liked to play with Pigtunia, Lars.
See, there you go. See, and there's there's an acceptance of her.
One took her to go see the geysers. One played with Pigtunia and then took her to raves. You know.
Yeah, and like you read those things, you go, yeah, I wouldn't want to move back to Rosewood either.
Yeah, and she wears her bohemian hipster things with lots of layers, lace-up boots, and APC jeans, which she bought on a trip to Paris. I would love to know what that says in your book, actually, but we can keep going.
Keep going. Yeah, so she drops Mike off. As we mentioned, she gets hit on in the practice. And then I think it's interesting too, the very casualness where she's like, well, I'm just gonna go like it was in Europe. I'm just gonna go very casually drink at a bar and see what happens. And Snickers just kind of looks at her and goes like, yeah, whatever. Let you in. And just like starts like going to like drink in the middle of the day. Which also, there's the difference between the like European pub culture and like American like bar culture in the middle of the day. Like this isn't a nice watering drinking hole to like catch up with people.
They left it the same.
Oh.
Probably because it was hipster.
Right. And hipster is at least a little bit more universal there, or has stood the test of time.
Yes.
And she bonds with Ezra over scotch. And gets way drunker. And this one has like 3 glasses, I think.
Yeah, 3 drinks.
And it's a very similar. I don't really have too much else to say about Ezra at this point. They bond over their shared things. They both went to Iceland. They're both like interested in literary. She pretends to be older, and then he's a little bit more forward, sheepishly of like kidding on her, and she's like, yeah, like responds to it in kind. So we get like more of that there. But I don't, it's pretty similar. I don't have really much else to say that we didn't exhaustively cover there
Perfect.
in the previous podcasts.
Then we get Hannah.
Yeah. Um, and again, I think she's really underwritten here. We kind of get her new personality.
I will say she's smarter. So like she wants to make a reference and then she's like a literary reference that Mona won't get.
Right.
And she's like, but Mona won't get it. So she
Mhm.
doesn't, which I think is interesting because in the show they really play her as a maybe more emotional intelligence than book intelligence. And in this, it's like she's playing that part. She's not actually that person.
Totally. And that she is she knows now how to
Play the game.
Exactly. There you go. Whereas in the show, she's just going to blurt out whatever comes to her mind. And sometimes that's like, yeah, I know literary references.
Mm-hmm. Because she read Lolita because it looked deliciously dirty. Foreshadowing. Don't worry, everyone. It's Lolita.
Mm-hmm.
Keep her in mind.
Yep. And it seems like Mona is much more the mean girl, even though Emily in an earlier chapter calls her a bitch, Hannah. Mm-hmm. We don't get Hannah being mean.
We didn't get a lot of that in the show either, though. She'd stand there while Mona was mean. Right,
exactly. So it's the mean by proxy essentially, and aren't afraid to talk about gossip and rumors, kind of out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we being a book too, we get much more into the things of how she feels when she steals things and the rush, and it's like a lot more paid attention to of like this dangerous thing we're doing in the high, and then ends on the like really silly Britney Spears pun.
Yes.
Kind of rolled my head at. Which is not updated because I don't know how you'd update that joke.
Well, and also everyone, it's a classic. Mm-hmm. Oops, I Did It Again is a classic.
Yeah. Oh my god, I also forgot about Fitz, that he, not to double check, but he wears a Smart Women Vote button.
Uh-huh.
So you kind of go like, it makes you like guess like, okay, like
he's a feminist.
Right. Or is he like co-opting a feminist thing because he knows like, the social currency it gets you.
Yes.
Oh, and yeah. There's a line in there about Hannah and Mona compare TikTok to Snapchat as part of their like conversation at the beginning.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not that people were having sex in Bethany's parents' bed?
Oh no, there was just a line about like TikTok, and they just like were sitting there comparing like TikTok and Snapchat.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
But I also do find it, at least in that scene too, that like Hannah is just like, my boyfriend announced to the group that he was going, and he signed a virginity pledge. Oh my god.
Like what? How horrible. The other good reference we get in this is iPod Nanos. And Chanel having an iPod Nano. There being a Chanel iPod Nano.
Damn. We are living in a different time.
Yeah. Because it's one of the things she would have shared with Allie. But like, of course, the most important thing would have been her makeover.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it's I wish Allie was around to see this. And essentially, I wish Allie was here to validate me. Because there's still that like aching part of me where I was always looked down on.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
I don't really have too much to say about that one.
No.
But the Hastings are out to dinner, waiting on Melissa. Always seemed like we get much more explicit here. Not much more explicit. There's different examples of being explicit of like the Hastings' preference for Melissa. We're going to go out with her. If Spencer was late to dinner, it would have been the thing. If Spencer was later going to move back in with her boyfriend, it would be a thing. But Melissa, it's like, oh no, we roll out the red carpet for you. We take care of you. Like the preferential treatment between the siblings. It's much more a thing. And they're much more of these like stereotypical hoity-toity, like, oh yes, darling, yes.
And the whole idea that Spencer couldn't say no about Melissa, like instead of her throwing a fit like she does in the show, she's like, oh, I'd love for you to live in the barn, Melissa. I can't wait to delay my time moving into the barn.
it's like if I throw a fit, everybody's gonna just gaslight me.
Uh-huh.
So I always have to put my needs second. The darling child that is Melissa.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also get that Spencer in the intervening years was just like, well, I'm just gonna double down on doing everything.
Yes. Yeah. She was like, I'm gonna join everything. I'm gonna be in every single club, every class. I was that kid.
Yeah.
I wasn't smoking cigarettes outside of the restaurant
right.
though, while my parents waited for my beloved older sister because I didn't have
Totally.
one.
Yeah. But I do think it's. Oh yeah, you wanted an older sister.
I really wanted an older sister. It was like the only thing I wanted as a kid.
Monkey paw could have curled, and you could have had a Melissa.
Oh, that's true.
It's yeah, I think the smoking, like we mentioned, is really important. Of like that she is emblematic of like, well, I'm gonna go do these secret things behind like for me, behind people's back. This is like, you know, a way of like rebelling, but also that it's framed in her mind that Ian taking advantage of her is her getting one up on Melissa.
Because we are pitted against each other.
And that the attention of an older boy is exciting also.
Yes. Well, and she was able to pull an older boy, whereas Melissa was just pulling a peer.
Right. And it's like, and that she like comments that Allison made her feel bad about that. And she was just like, Allison, what don't you understand?
Yes, I won.
Why
are you acting like this? Yeah, it's
totally.
very interesting.
And Allison, you know, kind of stands in as like what we can kind of like guess is that Allison stands in as like the sister, almost the successor to Melissa in a way of like, you know, she got chosen for the field hockey team, is popular and respected and all those things.
It's also interesting that Ren and Melissa have only been together for 2 months in this. Like it's like a fast.
So that, and it seems like she just like pulled him along, and he's just kind of like going along with the current, which is not going to make his actions later, where it seems like it's going any better. But he's just way more of a pushover. It's just like, yeah, she was interested in me, and I don't really know what I'm doing here. So like, I'm gonna find my outlet by talking to you and flirting with you, high schooler.
Well, and I think it's also like showing that Melissa plays into like the old money perfectionism, and I think Spencer's playing into more of like the cool girl era. You know what I mean? Like there's like that's where their divide is.
Because she can't meet. Oh, right, in the way they dress too.
Yeah, the way Melissa dresses. Melissa's wearing like a square neckline and like a perfect little and kitten heels.
So it made me think of doing modern references, or not modern references to this book. Who's the like Elwood's competitor almost? That is
Vivian.
Yeah, the brunette that wears that similar thing and wears like a headband and things. It makes me think of like her sort of outfit.
I didn't think of Vivian at all. I think of like more Kennedy, more like a little more prissy than that. I don't think of Vivian as that, because Vivian's supposed to be like the opposite of girly and pink, because she's not Elle, she's not pink, she's not peppy, she's not. And I think Melissa's more peppy, more socially, like
rather than like turtlenecks or like sweaters and things.
There's a way for that, but yeah, it's more like you know, like she's wearing like more like pink tones and yellow tones and a little more like, I don't want to say girlish, that's not right either, but just like feminine. More feminine.
Yeah. Because I guess the thing when I think of like Vivian is maybe not the tones, but like that style, where it's like very like put together, or kind of like country club casual.
I guess so. Yeah. I just remember the colors. I didn't look at the design of Vivian's clothes. Yeah. Okay. So I was like, she's not Elle.
Right.
And we learned from that women support women. You know,
that's right.
An important message.
Yeah. Oh God. The other thing from this, Mrs. Hastings calls Peter daddy. So we have to deal with the Hastings referring to Peter as daddy.
I mean, I feel like that's less weird in like a girl family.
Like, but it's still, you know.
I don't know if I ever called my bio dad daddy.
Yeah, but, you know, I understand the what we're talking about here, but it's kind of like, oh, daddy. Like, I don't know. It still grates.
I just think of Daddykins from Riverdale.
Thank you. Yeah, at least that one that has like the kids on the end. Yeah, it's a similar thing. But
Well,
and then yeah, we kind of get. I don't really have much to say about Arya's final chapter of kind of meeting Ezra. We get that. Oh, here's where I wrote Hannah brown hair reveal.
Mhm.
So that's the difference also. And then since it's I think the changing Rosewood to a private school makes a lot more sense of like highlighting the like more satirical aim here of like we're looking at like very rich
affluent
prominent
kids.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But and also when Hannah meets Arya, it's just like, hey, how's it going? Welcome back. Oh my god, it's so good to see
Yeah,
you.
weren't you in insert country here? But
Right? I think she says like Sweden or something.
Uh-huh.
So it's that's where like I get the vibe where it's like, you know, not necessarily like full mean girl. It's just kind of guilty by association and and letting things get away.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. We didn't even get into A stuff yet.
No, there's been nothing about A yet.
That we just get the first text at the end of this. And it's just to Arya.
It's following like a traditional like I guess like storytelling pattern where it's like you get your opening image and then you get your kind of like theme statement, you know what I mean? And then you kind of like move from there.
Mm-hmm.
And then like so you're still building that world before you really give like that like I guess like second inciting incident or like the real the one that's gonna actually set the story in motion.
Right. And they all are they're not together yet.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't like reunited anyway. They just kind of like exchange like, oh, hello, like great to see you.
Pleasantries.
Yeah. So, you know, I guess we'll stay tuned to that and how the things pick up. Okay, here we go. Finally found it. Emily paused. Because this is Maya says, is she a friend of yours? Asking about Allison. Emily paused. Maybe Maya hadn't heard about Allie's disappearance. This is a quote. She was a long time ago, along with a bunch of other girls who live around here. Emily explained, leaving out the part about the kidnapping or murder, whatever might have happened that she couldn't bear to imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So I assumed the she was a long time ago, along with a bunch of other girls who live around here, was like referring to other disappearances.
Oh, I thought she meant that they were friends.
That she is a friend of yours along with other girls. So I think I misread it.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, no, I took that as like she and like these other girls and I were all friends.
Yeah, I'd misread that. I think it was just like, oh, yeah,
fair
enough.
Like,
oh yeah, you know, along with other things. But so it is still just Allison's disappearance.
I think so.
Yeah, I'm like, I want to make sure before we finish off this episode that I can verify that. But yeah, we had a lot to talk about.
Well, what are we reading next?
Yes. So, in your books, if you're following along at home, read to chapter 17. Stop at 17. So it'll be chapters 6 through 16. And I'll put that in the show notes. And then from there, we'll go 17 all the way to the end. Depending on how this goes, I feel like we could probably do like a book in 2 episodes. But we'll see how the next episodes kind of go. And
Sounds
if we
good.
break more into 3. So that'll be in 2 weeks. Give us time to read and kind of get things put together so we can have... It's just more intensive because we can't just like sit down and watch 2 episodes in 2 hours. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But we also have an email where you can send questions about the book.
Or your thoughts, or if you've read them. Like, if you're like, oh, I'm excited for you guys to get to this part. Or like, I can't wait to see what you think about like, you know, this. But, you know, don't give us too many spoilers. I love spoilers. So like, if you send them, I don't care. I will read them. But Brenton shouldn't.
I mean, yeah, this is probably more...
I will
Google
the plot.
It's not like later... Then if it's not revealing later things of, well,
see,
yeah, I'll just put the blanket statement out there because I was gonna say like later things for the show, but like there's probably later things I don't know in the book series too.
I Googled the entire book series when I was watching the show to see it because I thought like people kept talking about like a specific twist, so I like looked it up to see what it was and like read the entire series synopsis. So like, I mean, I'm sure I've missed parts of it and I don't remember most of it, but like.
Right.
I'm not worried about spoilers.
Yeah. And I mean, I at least know enough about like the reveal on the first 4 books that, as you can see, there's no theory corner.
Mhm.
And I don't think there will be for these series because I kind of know the first 2 big reveals.
Mhm.
So at least with those, you're safe to, post in the comments, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess maybe send an email on those because be mindful of other people that are potentially following along for the first time. But you can send those emails to deadendspcast@gmail.com. If you want to listen to the audio version of this podcast, it's on all podcast platforms at Dead Ends, or you can find us on YouTube at dead_ends. Boy, I have to come up with a new tagline. We haven't even gotten it yet. Well, okay,
I
boy,
gotta think of a
I
maybe,
gotta think. Yeah.
Pigtunia.
Okay, so just next time, you know what? At the end of this episode, you might be thinking, "Yeah, we did it. We did do it again." It didn't really work, but that's all right. We'll come up with another one next
I
time.
don't get it.
It was the oops, I did it again.
Oh, it's like I don't.
Stay tuned for a new one next week.